Hey, I'm Jay Beershank. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we're here for another edition of Book Reviews. This one's being shot in a cheap motel in Wyoming near Cheyenne. Going on a family road trip with my dad up to Minnesota for Christmas. We got a bunch of family up there, so this is the Wyoming hotel edition. Sorry it's not a beautiful background, but it is what it is. Got to get the job done, know what I'm saying? Anyway, today we have a wonderful book, and it discusses things that I believe are pretty much integral parts of developing as humans and prerequisites to really fully enjoying life, I'd say. Anyway, that book is The 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership by Jim Dethmer, Chapman, and Kaley Warner Klemp, A New Paradigm for Sustainable Success. So let me first define what I believe is leadership and conscious, because those are two words that can be misconstrued and then interpreted with some personal baggage or everything will be interpreted with your personal lens. But to me, consciousness or conscious can be a buzzword. So when I think of conscious, I just think of being self-aware in the fact that you're not interacting with the world and other people without being fully present. And when I say present, I mean that you're in a reactive state where you're being triggered and you're acting out of subconscious or unconscious patterns that have been developed throughout your experiences that you've had in your life and have created who you are now in a egoic sense, not in a integral sense. So you've always, let's just use an example. Let's say that John has always been a victim in his life. He's always had this victim kind of mentality, like the world is against him and he's had to defend himself. So when he interacts with people, he's initially going to be wary of being taken advantage of, and the way that he constructs conversations and interactions with other people is coming from this place of victimhood. But it's unconscious, and he would never understand. Well, he might be able to reach understanding that he's doing that, but it's just become part of who he is in an egoic sense. So that would be unconscious in my opinion. So becoming conscious is basically fledging out those shadows, or at least trying to understand them better, and understanding that we can contribute more fully and be more present with people and hopefully contribute more to conversations and situations if we're just being aware of our own triggers and knowing how to work through them when they pop up. So that's what conscious means to me. And then leadership, I believe, is much more than just a job or a title. I believe it's a way that you choose to deem relevance to your life and the world, which in a way sort of creates your own reality, right? Because what you're deeming important is kind of navigating you through reality. So it's a way in which you navigate reality, I believe, is leadership. So conscious leadership would be a way in which you navigate reality that is constantly aware of the fact that you can easily fall into routine trigger states of being. And when we fall into these routine trigger states of being, we're not being present with others and ourselves, and we're not contributing in an honest, fulfilling way, at least not as honest or fulfilling as we could. So that would be my definition of conscious leadership, just so we can have that clear before I start talking about this book. So the book is 15 different commitments, and each commitment sort of has a esoteric and a practical aspect to it, like a more conscious, like cerebral and spiritual, emotional idea attached to it, as well as like a practical, in the real world, how do I use this as a CEO to be more effective of a leader? So it's really fun to read about, and I'll just go over a few of my favorite commitments, because I feel like what I addressed earlier about conscious leadership, just my own perception of it, like that is what the book's about. So if you're interested in what I said before, check out the book. But I would recommend it really sincerely, because yeah, it just opens up a lot. I think that there are many different ways you can choose to live your life, but choosing to live your life from a place of conscious leadership, I believe, is a fulfilling and purposeful life, because it's nonstop and it's every second of being aware of how you're interacting with things. But the first commitment is radical responsibility, and that's radical responsibility for anything that's happening in reality. So it's kind of an interesting concept, but it's like anything that's happening in my life, I take responsibility for manifesting, basically. And it's like, if this is showing up in my life, it sort of is being brought to me for a specific reason, and it's a choice I have of whether I want to say this is happening to me, or this is something that they talk about in the beginning of the book, these 4 states of being that people will flow through on a daily, in minute-to-minute basis, and that's the world in reality is happening to me, the world in reality is happening by me, so when it's happening by me, I'm creating it, it's happening through me, so like you're a conduit for something bigger, or it's happening as me, which is like a more profound spiritual idea, just like with like oneness, I guess, and unity, and yeah, not being in the flow, but being the flow state itself. So taking radical responsibility is and transitioning from the world and reality is happening to me, which could be perceived as a victim mentality, to a more proactive state, which is by me, which is, if this is showing up in my life, then I can take responsibility to do anything that I believe could be done about this. So things are happening by me. And I really love that idea of radical responsibility because obviously, as I have been talking about up to now, you can see how it completely applies to what I believe is conscious leadership, because you have to take radical responsibility every second for your own feelings and emotions and how you're choosing to express yourself and how you're choosing to impose reality onto others through you. So yeah, taking responsibility for those things is really a beautiful way to give your life meaning. That's a Jordan Peterson idea. Jordan Peterson's great. You can go check him out on YouTube, Jordan Peterson, or I have a talk that I talk about what he's given to me on my YouTube channel. You can check it out. But Jordan Peterson says that responsibility is what gives your life meaning in a kind of abstract idea and sense, and it's really interesting, but I really resonate with that, because the more you choose to bear, the more you can drop, and the more you can drop, it gives your life more meaning, because you're carrying this heavy load of responsibility. And responsibility isn't a have to, it's an opportunity, right? So that's what makes it even more beautiful, is it's not I'm responsible because I have to be, it's I'm responsible because I'm choosing to be. It's giving my life meaning, which is beautiful. So yeah, the first commitment of the radical responsibility is really great, and then I believe the next one, I have them written down, sorry, I'm gonna look at it. Learning through curiosity, that's a good one. So being curious of things that are showing up in your life, and when people bring you opinions or ideas that you don't necessarily initially resonate with or agree with or think have any relevance, being curious and asking questions to try to expand your own awareness and knowledge around other people's perspectives and potentials. And they talk a lot about being able to view the opposite points of the points you believe to be just as true or more true than your own. And when you start to think like that, it definitely opens up a lot of doors and curiosity, because you start to be curious about why people have certain opinions that you may have just deemed as stupid in the past, like this person's just stupid, I don't want to hear them. But if you're curious and you ask questions and you allow yourself to be present enough to not be triggered by what you believe this person may be, like we hear a lot about liberals and conservatives or whatever, foreigners. If you have this perception of like, this person is a stupid liberal, this person is a stupid foreigner, it's like you just immediately will discredit. And those are pretty, large categories you can fall into, but there's much more micro ones that we judge people with all the time. So being curious, taking responsibility, those are two beautiful ways to radically alter the reality that you create for yourself, I believe. And like I said, you can choose to live your life any way, but this conscious leadership way is a way that resonates with me a lot. And this book personally reaffirmed to me that I just need to be taking much more responsibility for how I choose to live my life, because I've noticed lately I've been falling into more unconscious ways of being and thinking and speaking, just because you fall into the rut. Like I'm working a 9-to-5 job now, which is completely different than my lifestyle before, where I was traveling the world doing much more of a different lifestyle, where I was very aware of myself and of what's going on, because I spend so much time in a different state than I am now. So this book was a great recalibration tool. That's how I consider it, as a realignment, a reminder, a recalibration tool. And all the commitments, I could go over all the commitments to you right now, but they're all great and they all resonated deeply. Responsibility, feeling your feelings and not being ashamed or hiding or discrediting your feelings, but feeling them all the way through. speaking the truth, speaking candidly, speaking your truth when things come up and you feel them and you think them, rather than thinking that they have no value or you shouldn't say them for some reason. Validating yourself through speaking your truth in the moment, which I think is such a beautiful, important thing that we're just kind of taught not to do, because it's like, you know, yeah, there's like power and secrecy and don't reveal too much, and yeah, follow the whatever rules of society, don't speak when you don't need to and only say what needs to be said and this kind of stuff. I think whatever, but it's a lot more empowering and validating of yourself holistically. I mean, you could be a really elitist person that thinks that nobody deserves to know their thoughts because their thoughts are so high and important, but I don't know, yeah, that to me isn't very interesting. But yeah, practicing integrity, generating appreciation. I think this book is great. I recommend it as just a realignment, recalibration tool, or maybe even a completely eye-opening revelation tool. You might never have thought about the things that this book talks about, and yeah, if that's the case, then I think this book could be magically transformative for you, or at least plant a seed that could potentially grow into something magically transformative. Yeah, so that's my review of The 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership by Jim Dethmer, Chapman, and Kaley Warner Klemp. A new paradigm for sustainable success. Thank you guys very much. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Take it easy. Much love from Wyoming.